McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago has a long history of high academic standards and a commitment to social justice. Like many schools, the pandemic has forced McCormick to move to online learning, even for internships in churches and social service agencies. To find out how McCormick is meeting this extraordinary challenge, we welcome David Crawford, McCormick Theological Seminary's president, and David Watkins, its Assistant Dean of Student Academics and Support. I know that McCormick moved to online learning earlier than many seminaries. How did you all reach that decision to go online?
Oh, well, I think a lot of seminaries were sort of in the same process that we were, a similar process, but I think we did get a little farther ahead. In part, we felt that, particularly after the mayor of San Francisco announced their stay-at-home order, I think we all came to realize very quickly that this was going to both be extremely serious and that it was not going to go away quickly. As a result, we did, in fact, ask our students to stay home probably earlier than a lot of other schools did. And that gave us some time internally in our community to involve students, staff, and faculty in a conversation about how we anticipated moving forward. And so I think the leadership we had from our faculty, and particularly our Dean Steve Davidson, Assistant Dean David Watkins, pulling the community together to get their thoughts, their feelings, their concerns, their fears, and allow us all to kind of go down this path together. Gave us the ability to say, we can do this. We're prepared for it. And by including the voices, as we typically try to do in our community and on decisions that are so important and have so much impact, it was very important to hear those voices. So we're grateful that we came through it with our community together in that process, and have just been extraordinarily grateful that our students and our faculty and our staff, but especially our students, have shown us the grace and patience and the resilience to move us forward through this process.
Is there anything you had to do differently to prepare your faculty for going through this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been a key element. And again, I just cannot say enough about the resilience and the innovation of our faculty, their commitment to the institution. This was a lot of new ground to cover in a very, very short period of time. And it takes a community of people who are not only prepared and willing, but also I think the leadership of our dean in particular to pull them together and say, this can take us into something that is certainly unfamiliar territory. But it can change the way our students learn. We can still bring the same rigorous educational opportunity, the same kind of intense formational experience, but we've got to be creative. We've got to be prepared to be creative. And I cannot say enough about how our faculty came together to do that. And so we're really grateful. And then the kind of handoff and the academic and student support that Dean Watkins and Tahil Singh and other people on our staff have provided really sort of pulled that together. So we did. We also had to look outside. We don't have all of the resources, obviously, as we're not a primarily online school. And while we've done some online learning, we had a learning curve. And so we relied on a number of folks outside our organization to provide design, curriculum input, to provide technological training and experience for our faculty. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention our small but mighty IT team. We've got a group of 3 extraordinarily dedicated individuals who made this pivot, and then around the clock not only got our faculty up to speed, not only made sure all of our sort of infrastructure was in place, but then again, working with Dean Watkins and others, reached out to every single one of our students to ensure that they had the bandwidth at home, that they had the necessary equipment at home. And one of the really remarkable stories that came out of this was, as we were reaching out to see, do we need to get more equipment to people? Do we need to get people laptops? Students started inquiring, saying, hey, I've got an extra laptop if somebody needs it. And so the community came together in just, it seems like small ways, and yet they were really monumental at the time. And they encouraged all of us to say, okay, we're going to get through this, and we're going to do it together. So just really grateful for the way our communities pulled this together and come together around making sure that we provide the same quality education that we've always done.
So that's definitely a positive out of this. Community has stepped up in ways that we probably never imagined them stepping up. So that is amazing.
I'm excited about that. I mean, in the face of all these challenges, and clearly the sadness and the sorrow and the frustration of what we have all had to watch unfold, there are these elements that have in our community that we have all been grateful for, and I think will resonate and impact how we move forward in the future.
How do you think McCormick will look different after the pandemic is over?
It's a great question. I'm sure every church and organization in the country and around the world is thinking about it that way too. And I think for us, we recognized relatively early on that this was not going to end anytime soon, and so we prepared our community throughout the last spring and then into the summer that we were going to have to build our character through the process of endurance, and this was going to take us time, that we were going to have to work at it. We're going to have to continue to support one another. And so through that process, what I think rather intentionally did not want to do is to say, we're just trying to get through this so we can go back to the way it was. We intentionally let people know that we've got to be thinking about how does this change all of us, and how do we have to do things differently. So I think our desire is not to return to the status quo. Our desire is to do bigger, new things, and to build on the experiences that we have had, to build on the learning that we have done during this process, and really start to create bigger and more, and I'd say broader opportunities to expose people to how theological education is relevant, particularly in this moment in time, not just in relative to the pandemic, but in terms of addressing the issues of white supremacy and addressing the issues of systemic racism, and not doing it just in an academic way, but to bring the curriculum outside the walls and to take all of us outside the walls, to say that this is not a time to sort of sit back or retrench. This is a time where we have to step up. It's got to sort of put the curriculum into action. And I think that that's really how we view our role in theological education. And I think that's the impact our students have when they go out into the world and into the church and the not-for-profits, into the community, to build community. So I think there will be positives. And our hope is not to return to what was, but to help lead the way to what can be.
So what do you think some of those long-term effects will be?
We're a relatively small community, and we miss one another. We miss being together. We miss breaking bread together. And yet we've got a lot of folks who are students who have been in the workplace, who are coming back to school, who are bivocational, who have homes and jobs and families, for whom the convenience of not having to drive to Hyde Park after a hard day's work and to be able to attend class online has really, I think, for a lot of folks been a positive out of this. And so again, we look forward to the day when we can all be together, because that's the kind of community we are. But on the other hand, it broadens our ability to be flexible, to think of the world in sort of a hybridized fashion, and realize that we've got the capacity to do these things. We have the capability to do it. So I would see in the future for us a continuation and maybe expansion of the opportunities to do on both online teaching, online programming, and more ways to bring more people into the experience of theological education.
Thank you. Thank you. I have two Davids. Now I get a chance to switch over to you, David Watkins, and ask you a few questions. Can you tell me how the students have coped with this? How have they been doing during this pandemic so far?
I cannot speak more highly of the student body at McCormick Theological Seminary with great grace and patience and resilience. They have managed well, considering all that has taken place. This was a switch for everybody, right? Much like the whole world, everybody had to make the pivot, make the switch, and even in a very relatively short amount of time. But even so, our students rose to the occasion, made the shift, challenged us to make sure that we were still going to provide them with the education that they came to McCormick to get. A life transforming education. And I believe so far our students have done well. And they always tell us how they're doing. We have a chance to check in with them periodically. They share with us in our student council meeting or the Board of Deacons meeting, but we have various options where the students can check in. And as I would say, we are blessed. In spite of all that is going on, our student body has been doing a very good job.
Do you have any stories of obstacles that you faced in the beginning or even now?
All of our students have had to face numerous obstacles. One particular story comes to mind. We had, and this wasn't even our student, it was a student who was taking a class with us. One of the things that McCormick has always been committed to is the overall holistic well-being of its student body, not just the academics, but the overall life holistic well-being. And one of our students was actually not a McCormick student, the story that I'm thinking of. He was actually a cross-registered student in our class. Everything shut down. He did not have the resources needed to continue in the online format. His school was not providing the resources to him. But guess what? Because he was taking one of our classes, because he was a part of our community for that semester, McCormick Theological Seminary provided the resources that he needed to complete his class and finish, because that was his last class he needed for graduation from his seminary. So this is the kind of care, the kind of support that we are committed to as a seminary, not just for our own student body, but for the larger body, all of the students who have a chance to take classes with us. We're committed to all students at all times. The unique challenge for our international students was that we had a group of students, about 9, who came in and they were admitted, right, this particular fall. But of course, because of the pandemic, they could not come. So now they have been taking classes. And of course, depending on where they are, there's a huge time difference. So they're 5 or 6, 7 hours difference. And so they're waking up at extraordinary hours of the day, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, but yet they do it. They're committed to getting the education here at McCormick. So yes, we've been providing services. Yes, there have been meetings where I've had to have a meeting with a student at 3 in the morning, right? Or 5 in the morning. But we have to do this. This is what we have to do to make sure our students feel supported, are supported, and we're committed to their flourishing and success as a student at McCormick.
Part of being at McCormick is serving a church or a nonprofit as a field placement student. How has that looked different during this pandemic?
Well, let me tell you, that's not an easy answer, and it's not a short one either. You know, before I became the assistant dean, I served in the role in field ed, and I can only imagine all of the things that are happening there, right? So part of the field ed experience is about having these face-to-face interactions. It's about having these engagements with folks where you get a chance to develop your pastoral leadership and pastoral identity. And so one of the things that are lost immediately when you don't have the necessarily face-to-face engagements is that you don't get a chance to, find out and develop that sense of intuition and read the body language and read between the lines in order to provide care for a particular parishioner or in a particular case. But even though the predictability and stability of having the in-person experience isn't there, it's also been an opportunity for us to imagine how to do this differently. It's been an opportunity for creativity and curiosities and new possibilities that have been born out of this crucible of crisis. And so one of the things I love about field ed, one of the things I love about theological education is that we're open to new possibilities. I mean, that God is still speaking, that God is still moving, that God can use these opportunities not just obstacles, but as opportunities for our growth, for our formational growth, our spiritual growth, and our leadership development. So field ed has been different, as has all things have been different. But our wonderful staff led by Dr. Joanne Lindstrom has done a wonderful job, still making placements, still making sure they're good fits, checking in with the site supervisors and field ed students to make sure that students are getting what they need out of the experience.
I say thank you. Your excitement made me want to go back to school.
Listen, I love McCormick. I love what we do. And it's a wonderful opportunity. I mean, it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be in field ed. It's a great time to be in theological education.
Thank you, President Crawford and Dean Watkins. I'm Jasmine Taylor for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.